Now, if we take a look back at the Star Wars franchise, let's say all the way back to 1977, it's obvious to say that George Lucas is the man who really knows Star Wars at its best, since he was the one who created Star Wars A New Hope, all the way up until Return of the Jedi and even the prequel trilogy era. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, the one thing about the sequel trilogy that the prequels and the original have, alright, is that the sequels actually do not have consistency. That's the one big problem with the sequel trilogy era, is that it lacks consistency, and it kind of lacks the overall feeling of Star Wars at times. I will admit that there are moments in The Last Jedi, The Force Awakens, The Rise of Skywalker, brief segments where it really does feel like Star Wars here and there. As much as I personally hate The Last Jedi, there was always a little moment just here and there that felt more like Star Wars. A great example is when Luke Skywalker is looking at the hologram of his sister Leia, giving us a nice callback to A New Hope. That was probably the only big highlight of The Last Jedi. So, looking at everything here, ahead for the future of the Star Wars franchise, everything ranging from Disney Plus to their theatrical releases, one thing that a lot of fans will agree on is that Lucasfilm's Kathleen Kennedy is very incompetent over at Lucasfilm. She's very incompetent when it comes to being a leader of all things Star Wars, being the president of a company like Lucasfilm. And on top of all of this, the real bad news about what Lucasfilm is actually doing is a specific project that Kathleen Kennedy is actually going to be a part of, and that this is going to be her brief return, if you will, during its pre-production stages. Let's explain. So, now that both Disney and Lucasfilm are finished and, of course, have The Rise of Skywalker out of theaters, they are focused on their new Star Wars trilogy of films as well as the new Star Wars universe. Now, currently, Disney and Lucasfilm have many different plans in place in order to create a better future for the franchise and to reunite the fans around the world. However, it's described that although Kathleen Kennedy no longer has any creative control over any of the existing Star Wars projects in the works, by contract, Kennedy was allowed to move forward with at least one Star Wars project for the new Star Wars universe by hiring Leslye Headland to become a part of an all-female-led Star Wars TV series for Disney Plus. Now, it's explained that this will be Kathleen Kennedy's last project for the new Star Wars universe on Disney Plus and for theatrical releases, and that Bob Iger and Chapek are said to be very unhappy with her decision with bringing in Leslye Headland to take control of this project of all people. Now, by contract, Kennedy is allowed to have creative control over one project, while Chapek and Iger reshape Star Wars completely to give it a better future as we head through the entire crisis that is happening around the world. Now, Kennedy's return is described to be a brief one, where she will only be working closely with Leslye Headland during the pre-production stages of this year, since Chapek and Iger are said to have a plan in place to get rid of Kathleen Kennedy sometime this year that will go into effect sometime in 2021. Now, the plan by Chapek and Iger is that they already have a candidate to replace Kathleen Kennedy. However, it's implied that they cannot do anything yet about the hiring of Leslye Headland for an all-female Star Wars TV series with identity politics, real-world issues, and her personal agendas being thrown into it. So, the thing about this that sounds like the biggest disaster of all is that Kathleen Kennedy returns, unfortunately, yet it's a temporary return. It's not really going to be like she's back at Lucasfilm for years to come. This is a temporary thing for Kathleen Kennedy, and she will only be working during the pre-production stages with Leslye throughout this entire year for this all-female-led Star Wars TV series on Disney Plus that is going to give us a different take on Star Wars. Now, to me, it sounds like a disaster, not just because it's all females. I don't really necessarily have a big problem with that per se. There's a lot of movies out there that has an all-female lead that doesn't really cater to identity politics that's, shoved in there. It doesn't necessarily have agendas in there or real-world issues. You have to have a well-grounded story to actually have a meaning as to the reason as to why it's an all-female-led Star Wars TV series, in my opinion at least. If we look at all of the original trilogy, sure, there weren't as many females in the originals, I get that. But still, it was equaled out, in my point of view. You had Han, Luke, Leia, you had Leia here and there, other female characters, pretty much spread out. The same exact thing was for the prequel trilogy era. I think the fact that equality is a better solution to have, a lot of male characters, a lot of female characters, I think that's a better way to go. But in my point of view, when we look at everything related to Star Wars in general, I think that pushing this all-female led stuff, you know, and that's the only thing that all of the stories are pointing to when it comes to the headlines, it just shows us that that is Lucasfilm's only intention here with this new Star Wars show. So, Kathleen Kennedy's return, I wouldn't worry about it too much because I really do believe that this Star Wars TV series is going to fail terribly if it's only going to be focused on what they want it to be as opposed to how well of a story they want to actually tell to the fans. If they have that formula, it's going to fail horribly. It will. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right? So, let me know what you guys think about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.